This is Collins John, and you are listening to Fulham Focus Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Fulham Focus iPodcast. I'm Jmac, your host, and with me are Statto and Marty to chat all about our delicious 1-0 victory against Boro at the Cottage last Friday night. A great result with some standout performances, but in fact the weekend was filled with great results, as you can probably tell from the music playing behind me. Leeds lost and are falling apart faster than a custard cream in a vast hot ocean of PG tips. And Brentford drew. We are now 5 points away from an automatic place, ladies and gentlemen, which makes our trip to Charlton on Wednesday vital to keep this form going and to not slip on any bananas in predictable Fulham fashion. Good thing we'll be previewing Charlton too. All that on the other side of this noise.
Fulham.
Right, Statto on my left and Marty on my right. Here I am. Hello, boys. Now, the question prior to the match was who would replace Mitro, and Bobby Reid was the man tasked with the responsibility of playing in the middle. I mean, he missed some great chances early on, but there was a superb fluidity to Fulham's play. First 25 minutes or so, it reminded us of, Reading or Millwall. I mean, does this mean that Mitro does restrict the way we play somewhat, or was this just some excellent play by a team that is more than capable of producing on its day? What do you think, Mr. Statto, sir?
Hello. Firstly, I think it was always going to be Bobby Reid who was going to come in and play, to be honest. With Kamara out injured and other attacking options were quite thin on the ground, it was kind of always going to be Bobby Reid. And I think for the most of it, he played quite well. You know, Bobby Reid, he always puts in a great shift for us. His link-up play is always excellent. And of course, there's going to be a big test to see how you play up front during the game. Unfortunately, I think some of his finishing was a bit off. Mate, that could be down to him being a bit rusty, not playing up top, not getting all these chances. But, he still had a good game, and he still, he made Cavallero and Knockaert kind of play a lot better because of it. I think a good comparison for this is if you look at Liverpool, who are arguably probably the best team in the world right now, whether you love them or hate them, their front three of Firmino, Salah and Mane, they have such a good relationship and understanding of each other that they just score the goals. And in that front three, Firmino is kind of their striker, the one in the middle, but he doesn't get the majority of the goals. That is always Mane and Salah. So similar for us, playing Bobby Reid, Cavallero, Knockaert. With Bobby Reid, we've got kind of a number 9 who kind of sets up Cavallero and Knockaert and kind of lets them flourish, whereas he does all the hard work, which is something that Mitro doesn't. With Mitro, he's kind of more of the front and centre target man who gets the goals. All of our attacks kind of go through him centrally. But, it was quite refreshing to see that we can play in two different ways if needed.
Yeah, I have a tweet here from at Fulham Flutter, Anthony B. And the tweet is, anyone who thought Reid was terrible or ineffective last night simply does not understand football or just wasn't watching properly after a few beers. Essential to our victory and dynamism. Is it dynamism? Marty, I'll go to you with that. Well, do you agree with that tweet? And what are your general thoughts on Reid coming on for Mitro and the way we looked?
I thought it was good. I mean, I think we all assumed the worst without Mitrovic, being out to 4 to 6 weeks. We were all crying out for, we're going to bring in a striker. Kamara being injured. But I thought Bobby Reid, I know he wasn't finishing stuff, but the creativity that we were doing. I mean, we could have won that game easily 5 or 6-0 by halftime. It was like the first 29 minutes was pure dominance, and it was really pleasing to see. And suddenly, while we were kind of looking at it as a situation where we're thinking we haven't really got creativity, we're not doing anything, suddenly we were seeing a different side to this Fulham, and it's almost like the pieces are coming together. And I say a certain rock at the back also helps. I think we already know who that is.
We talked about Rodak until the woolly mammoths come home, but nonetheless, it was an amazing performance by Rodak. Great few saves, and, he's our best keeper, in my opinion, for the last 6 years, yada, yada. We've talked about that. He was part of the holy clean sheet trinity number 1, okay? But clean sheet trinity number 2 it's great to see the ever-popular Kevin McMatic get another chance, especially with Harry Harter fit and breathing down his net. I mean, Stato, how did Super Kev get onto you?
It's been really refreshing to actually see McDonald come back into the team. At the start of the season, with Arter and Harrison Reed coming in, you would think that McDonald would kind of take more of a backseat role this season, coming off the bench to see out a win, and being very much a squad player. And that seems to be the case at the beginning of the season. He hasn't had many starts, but he's come back into the team, and he always seems like a revitalised player almost, because he didn't have the best of times in the Premier League, and like a lot of our players, their confidence would have got a bit knocked. So he's come back in, and he's playing like the Kevin McDonald of old. The one we had when we went up, the one who protects the defence. He did that. He's acting as that vital link between the defence and the midfield. And if we can maintain this form for the rest of the season, it's just fantastic news for us. And I can see our defence being a lot more astute and a lot more kind of safe even. And yeah, it's just good to see, really.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, it was great to see K-Mac back at it again. And, it's weird, 3 starts and 3 wins. And there's another player who had 3 starts and we've had 3 wins from, but we'll come to him in a minute. Look, after 6 minutes, Kearney played the ball out to Joe Bryan on the left-hand side, and he centred it to Knockhart, who scored from very close range. I mean, it looked like an easy goal, but it was a great move, wasn't it? Talk to me about Knockhart, Marty. I mean, he's starting to look like the player that was promised to us when we bought him in August, isn't he?
Yeah, it's weird because at one point we were all kind of thinking, oh, he's not great. And then he got dropped and, put onto the bench. And then he seems to really sort of, I don't know, come into his own, almost like he's sitting on the sidelines for a while on the bench. He's kind of observed what he needed to do. Obviously, yeah, he has about 65 shots and about one of them will go in. But you can't deny his passion. He's looking like a player that, as you said, the players, so the people that were Brighton fans were saying you're getting a really good player in Knockhart. He's such a threat. And he's one of those people as well. When he's in your team, he's great. If you're against him, he's an absolute nightmare. And that's what you like to see. It's just adding that sort of extra threat. And with Cav on the other side, who's ever since he signed that contract seems to be a completely different player at the moment.
Yeah, I noticed Cavallero was, brilliant this game. I thought, he was just so strong on the ball and his passing was immense. But going quickly back to Knockhart, as you alluded to there, Stato, I'll go to you with this. The lead up to the goal was Joe Bryan bombing on forward with a really lovely assist. And we've just recently signed Terence Congolo, a very promising left centre-back, potentially can be left-back as well. And there were rumours that, Joe Bryan might be off to Watford and Congolo's going to take his place. But it does show you from this goal how much we still really do need Joe Bryan. When on his day, he is fantastic. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great assist from Joe Bryan. And, one of his big strengths is getting crosses in and getting, kind of his final third of attacking is always very good with Joe Bryan. It's always his defensive abilities, which are always a bit questionable. And I think he has kind of been a bit unfairly targeted in recent weeks because, all of the opposition's attacks tend to come down the right-hand side, which is where he's defending. So it's always, blame Bryan. But I think he had a very solid game. It's good to see him come back into the team. And obviously, you got the assist with it. And like with Knockhart, I think what I like with this team this season in general is that, a player can be on the bench for a while and they can come back and they seem to come back stronger. If we compare it to the promotion team from 2 seasons ago, we kind of knew more or less what our starting 11 would be week in, week out. There'd be very little change, maybe, Kamara for Aite or something along those lines. Whereas with this team, a couple of weeks ago, we were adamant that our best front three was Mitrovic, Kamara and Cavallero. We were adamant that Harrison Reed was the best midfielder to have. And, now last week it was like Odoi better than Bryan. But, now this week it's a case of, Joe Bryan had a solid game at left back. Kevin McDonald, he needs to be in the team all the time because he's just been phenomenal. So I really like that everyone's kind of putting in a shift and putting in solid performances as needed, kind of spread over the season. So not one person has to take kind of the responsibility of playing well week in, week out.
Really nice, mate. Marty, do you want to add anything to that or should we go on to the next point, mate?
No, Matt's totally right. I've noticed as well, as Matt said, every player that we thought was done as a Fulham player, like Cabano, McDonald, Steph Joe, have all stepped up this season. Like every time when you think, oh, they're done, or, Kamara as well. Like, we all thought he was done and then he went on that surge of like scoring goals and playing really well. Then, of course, he got that unfortunate sort of nip on his ankle. I think it's quite good to see. It just kind of helps that we're having a big squad that we actually have, or actually a compact squad, that every one of these players are chipping in. And it's good to see at the moment.
Well, you talk about chipping in. Let's talk about Onuma. I mean, he had a great chance to score after 14 minutes. Cavallero blasted it over with a great passing move, but Onuma, again, headed it wide, unmarked at the back post from a corner. And then Bobby Reid also found Rose Ed with a clear chance to score. Were you worried, Marty? I'll go straight back to you with this. Were you worried it was going to be one of those nights where, we were made to pay for our missed opportunities? Or were you excited to see so many good opportunities created? I mean, why don't you think we could bury them? It's probably an easier question to ask.
That's the thing, isn't it? Is that we had so much more creativity in the team without Mitrovic in the team, but we didn't have that sort of deadly presence up front who could bury the chances. I know, obviously, Mitrovic is going through certain games where he has a few opportunities and doesn't score. But yeah, it had that kind of feel where you were just thinking, when Onuma kind of got it, he headed it, but he was so beyond the back post, he just headed it straight and nowhere towards the direction of the goal. Any other day, that would have been, in, it was taken off the woodwork. But the more creative, I think there was something about that game that you thought, if we don't put it could have been 6-0 at halftime, as I said to you before. You did start to think to yourself, it's just going to be one of these ones where they're going to nick a goal in the last minute. And, It did nearly come, to happen. And we did have a goal chalked off as well, unfortunately, after a lovely sort of celebration in it. But as I say, it was a worry, but I enjoyed the creativity. So I was always hoping that one of them was going to go in. But 2-goal cushion always helps.
I thought Onuma had a really, really good game once again. I mean, I think a lot of people, certainly on the Twitter sphere now, are just sort of eating their words after saying what a donkey he seemed to begin with. I mean, he also is just still doing some Parker pirouettes still on the pitch, which was good to see when I was at the game. But Tom Kearney had a good chance as well after yet another great move, but his shot was saved by the keeper. Kearney had a great first half, but faded in the second half, similar to Onuma, but not as much. How do you think he did, Statto? I'll go up to you with this.
I think he had a good game. I think this season in general, he's kind of been playing less of an advanced role that we've seen before, and he's playing more of a traditional midfielder role, which it's working. It's fine. He's putting in good shifts. Maybe not as creative as an expense of that, but I think he had another solid game. Obviously, in the second half, he did kind of fade away. Maybe that was down to fitness. I know that he hasn't been in the squad for the last couple of games, so it could be a bit of match fitness there. But as a benefit, on the plus side, we had quite a few midfield options on the bench that we could replace him with. He was replaced by Arthur, I think. So it wasn't the biggest issue, but I think if the Mitro injury is longer than we thought, Kearney will be quite an important player to have in that midfield, because if we're playing this kind of creative, free-flowing football without Mitrovic, he's kind of a big catalyst for that, and it's someone important that we'll need in the midfield for.
I've got some tweets here actually about Kearney's performance, and I just want to see what your thoughts are on them, Marty, sir. Here's one from Daniel. It says, when we played well yesterday, a lot of it came through Kearney. Look at his ball in the build-up to the goal, for example. But in the patches we didn't play well, he was anonymous. Then another guy underneath writes, he's relying too much on one foot and seems to be lacking inspiration when without the ball. Just like to hear your thoughts about that, if that's something that's rung true to you over the past few games for Kearney, mate.
It's strange because he started off really well at the beginning of the season and then he faded. So we're not sure.
Scored some worldies.
Yeah, exactly. He's what he's well known for, isn't he? Guess he's given you that opportunity. I think it's a bit difficult to judge him on that performance because maybe he got substituted sort of 20 minutes into the second half, I think, if I remember rightly. And as he's coming off from an injury, coming back from an injury, and he was off for quite a while, you kind of give him benefit of the doubt. But as the saying used to be, if Kearney plays well, Fulham play well, and we have managed to cope without Kearney. So it's a bit difficult. He's not the same player he was at the beginning of the season, but then, we saw him have an opportunity where he saw it, and then you thought, oh, if he's going to take a shot, maybe that goal would kind of give him that confidence. Don't know. But as I say, I'm not one who's out there to sort of be like throwing Kearney at the bus at the moment, I'm afraid.
Well, let's talk about some people that we do like to throw under the bus. Patrick Roberts looked like Boro's most effective playmaker in this game. And I'll just really quickly to each of you, because we don't want to talk about this too much. But I mean, I find it really weird because, I remember seeing Patrick Roberts, when he was playing for us, and he looked so young, and he's quite a small chap, but now he's got a bit of stubble. It's pretty bizarre. But, do you think he deserved the boost that he got when he took that corner from the hammy end? I'll go to you, Stato, really quickly. What are your thoughts on Patrick Roberts?
It's a bit of a difficult one because, when he left, it was a bit annoying because he was kind of coming through. He's one of our own from the academy, and he could have gone on to bigger and better things. However, I think we got, was it 15 million for him back then? I think we got 15 million for him from City.
Yeah, maybe with some add-ons as well, actually, I think, maybe. Yeah,
so you look back on that, and it was probably quite a good deal. I mean, in hindsight, we were thinking, we lost a great talent. He's going to go on to do big and better things, and it hasn't worked out for him. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand why some people booed him, but, he wasn't really a Fulham legend or anything that left on bad terms. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And Marty, are you in Bordeaux's situation where you hate him as much as what are your thoughts on him?
Bordeaux was a massive fan of him. He was never the player that we actually were hoping to see. I mean, he's kind of like, in some ways a Harvey Elliott, where we never saw his full potential. He's a small player in midfield. I feel like Harvey Elliott will probably go on and maybe do a little bit more, but obviously he left on bad terms. But we got a profit, and at the end of the day, we got one of our own who stepped up, who was in that team of Moussa Dembele and Pat Roberts, and his name was Ryan Sessegnon. So I kind of, sweetened the blow. He's not, he's gone on and he's won trophies with Celtic. He's just, moved around on loan in different places. I think wasn't he in somewhere like Belgium or Holland last season? It's a shame because you always want, certain players that are from your academy, if they do go on to see what they go and do. But at the end of the day, he's not really been the player. But I think he got booed due to frustration. I think he was their best player. And all the time you keep thinking, Christ, he's not going to score, is he? A typical former Fulham player scoring against us. But it didn't happen. It's like Marmite, you love or hate him. I didn't really have an opinion with him, really. I just thought he was a very good player for him.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think there's I just didn't see the necessity to boo him at all. I think he made probably a poor decision to leave, and because I feel like actually maybe his level is where he is at the moment, but he might improve. But for me, there's no ill blood there at all. Now let's go from.
I have just I just looked him up, and he's actually still only 22 years old. I feel like he's been around for longer, so he may still come good. Who knows?
Who knows? But let's go from boos to cheers. So this is clean sheet Trinity number 3, the final one. The other guy who's had 3 starts and 3 wins. It's Virgil van Dijk. Michael Hector looked excellent this game. And it's good to finally have someone that's a tall, composed presence in our defence now, isn't it, Mr. Stato?
Absolutely. I said on the last pod that, it looked like Hector was kind of this alpha centre back that we've been crying out for. And again, in this game, it looked more and more like this was the case. Again, he commanded the defence. I think he won literally every header in the air that came towards him. Put in some fantastic tackles. I remember there's a really good last-ditch tackle he did as a Boro player was in the box. He just was very composed and got the ball intercepted perfectly. And it's just refreshing to see because we've had a bad defence or a leaky defence for so long now. And, in Rodak, Hector and McDonald, if, they stay in the team and they can keep this defence compact, it's just going to be really refreshing to see us get more clean sheets, to be honest.
It's the Hector effect. I mean, me and you, Jmac, were absolutely adamant during that summer transfer window about us getting Michael Hector over the line. And due to Levy holding back on the Sessegnon money, it didn't happen. all I know is that Hector had passed his medical. He was ready to sign, and unfortunately we couldn't. But eventually we announced, I think a few weeks later, that he would be joining in January. And it's literally like a breath of fresh air. It's like the time that we signed Mitrovic and Target into the team. It's like having a Hangeland back in the team. It's so good to have a defender who knows what he's doing and doesn't mess about with it. It is so good to see at the moment. It really, really is. And I'm really glad, because I was thinking, oh, God, please don't end up being rubbish. But yeah, it's brilliant. I'm loving every minute of it.
Me too, and I think him next to Tim Ream actually works. I thought it would be Mawson. I mean, maybe it might be Mawson in the future, but the Tim Ream and, I mean, Boro aren't mugs, as Danny Boy would say. I mean, this was, they're a good team. They've had some really good results recently against big teams in this league. So, we have to take it that, this was good defence and there was a good partnership. And, it does make you think if we signed him 8 minutes earlier before the deadline, we may be in a higher position than we are now. But we don't do it the easy way. That's not the Fulham way. Now, let's talk about... well, I mean, you mentioned, actually, Marty, you mentioned Oddoi's amazing celebration, the flip. He always does these flips. But again, I love him so much, but this was for absolutely nothing. It was from one of those trademark free kicks for Cavallero trickery. And it was so funny to actually see it done right for a change. I threw my hat up in the air and I lost it for a good 10 minutes after that goal. What were you thinking, Statto, when you saw that sort of set piece technique finally pay off?
Oh, it's good, isn't it? Again, like having a good defence at last. I feel like it's been ages since we've seen us score from a set piece. And then one did happen, and it was all great news. And then unfortunately the flag went up, and I think it was just about offside. I'm amazed that the liner managed to catch that in today's world.
It was like VAR, wasn't it? It was just almost like it was uncanny good linesmanship.
It was weird. Like, there was a good 5-10 second delay before the linesman put his flag up, and it looked like he was talking to someone, but I have no idea who or if there was something going on behind the scenes. But that's just the conspiracy theorist in me. But unfortunately the flag did go up. He was probably like a hand's width offside. But if we can see more of that in the future, that'd be good to see. If we can kind of get these more set pieces done. Now we have like a big figure like Hector who can win headers, like not just in defence, but if he comes up for a set piece as well, then that's a big bonus. And obviously Oddoi, he's got springs in his feet or something. He just wins headers. So yeah, if we can get that nailed down, we could see a good kind of good outlet for some goals, hopefully.
Marty, do you want to add anything to the Oddoi thing?
Just a little bit. It was the most delayed offside ever. It was almost like the linesman was so going, "Wow, that's a really good celebration." Oh shit, it's offside, and then he suddenly put his hand up. That's what it felt like. So, but that's my only thing. I just thought after doing the celebration, you're like, I'll give him 10 for that, and I will just pretend that it wasn't an offside. I think it was the slimmest of margins as well for offside, and to score a goal from a set piece, it's like taking away us scoring a goal from a corner. How dare they?
I know. I got to say, there's another. I'll stop. I'm like fucking talking clock today. I'm just giving out tweets. But there was one of my favourite tweets I've seen in ages from Harry Santandavo. Dennis Oddoi is Fulham. Never come across a player who more perfectly embodies a football club. A lovable, flawed lunatic. It's just probably one of my favourite tweets this year. Well, I mean, it's only January, but you know what I mean. I think Dennis Oddoi is such a cult hero in my book. Now, let's talk about the substitutions. This was actually really, really clever from Scott Parker, in my opinion. He read the game very well. He replaced the two midfielders that were quite leggy in this game. So he took off Kearney, then he took off Onuma, and he replaced them with, I believe it was Arta and Johansson. Yes, it was Johansson. And, it was really interesting because, it really helped because we kept losing the ball in the middle of the park around 15 minutes into the second half, and we were not good. I mean, it really was a game of two halves. The second half was not nice to look at all. We were really inviting, soaking up pressure. But as soon as that change was made, we looked a lot better. And it just shows you how strong our bench is now when we're blessed with, when injuries aren't as bad as they used to be. What do you think about that, Marty?
It's mad, isn't it? Because I swear that not long ago, we were talking about Scott Parker's substitutions. It's almost like he really is learning game for game. That was genius by Scott Parker. I couldn't believe I'm actually saying these words, because I was definitely one of those people thinking, after having gone those few losses, I was just like, we're being outclassed, we're being outmanaged. Scott Parker hasn't got a clue. Some of these substitutions are terrible. And yet he did that. And as you say, it was almost like filling in the holes that were clearly just sitting there. And you were thinking, fair play to you, Scott Parker. Never gets the plaudits when he does something good. But yeah, well spotted, Jmac.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move. Obviously, Kearney, Onuma do a lot of running. It's good that we have this strength and depth in midfield to be able to bring on Steph, Joe and Arta. And, we've also got Harrison Reed coming back from injury at some point. What I will say, although it looked like a strong bench, I was a bit concerned with the attacking options. And this could be the case going forward. As it stands, we have Cavallero, Knockaert and Bobby Reed as our front three. But you look at the bench, if one of them were to get injured or if they were to get tired, there wasn't many options there to go on. I mean, there's that Jay Stansfield, this new young striker. De La Torre's there, but he's just this bench warmer enigma that we have now. So that could be an issue going forward. And with Mitrovic out injured, with Kamara out injured, Cabano I think is injured as well. We do seem to be a bit light in those attacking options, and if we expect Cavallero, Knockaert, and Bobby Reed to play all these games on their own, they could suffer burnout, and that could be quite a bit of an issue, to be honest.
Well, I was going to talk about this in the Charlton preview, but let's just talk about it now, actually. Marty, would you say that the hunt for a new striker is over now because Mitro is out for only 2 to 3 weeks? Or would you say that we probably might be in for a striker yet still? But then again, Kamara, we still, as Fulham like to do this season, is not tell anything about our fucking injuries. So we don't really know what we're dealing with here. What are your thoughts about, a potential striker coming in, or if we need it or not?
First of all, we're thin. We're very, very thin in the squad. So it is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Secondly, Tony Khan kind of abruptly said up the Fulham after all the results are in at 5:00. If he knows anything that we've actually got very short in this team is attacking options, what's saying that we can't go out for just some kind of striker who's just on the fringes of the Premier League, teams who just can't get in there and need some games, or a championship player? I mean, I'm sure Tony's going to have his fingers in there to look for a striker. I'm pretty much convinced that we are going to bring a striker in, just in case if Mitrovic has got this injury. This is an injury that you can definitely reoccur every now and then. So we definitely need to have that option of having an extra striker. Yes, we have Kamara. Yes, we have Cabano, blah, 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 blah. But it's just good to have the options.
It's also an injury that can, get worse and be delayed in coming back. I mean, it has happened for a lot of players in the past. I think Danny Ings is quite similar. He had trouble with his ankle. I mean, there have been so many rumours going through that we're looking at, potentially an attacking option from Huddersfield. Zembo, I can't remember his name, but I mean, apparently that looks like a complete dud, that rumour. I saw Daniel Sturridge was a rumour started by some transfer tweet bot today, which is a complete lie as well, but that was quite fun to listen to while it was going. But yeah, I agree. I think the attacking options are interestingly thin, and we need to sort of deal with that if the Kamara injury is bad. But I think even if Kamara is back fit for Charlton the day after tomorrow, then we should still be getting a centre forward in this cover just to, keep our asses safe. Now, let's talk go on.
I think one other thing I just want to point out is because we signed Congolo, who can play at left back, another option we could have is to move Joe Bryan further forward into left wing, just so we have another attacking option as a winger, so we don't just have to rely on Cavallero or Knockaert. So, that could also be an option, a kind of a unconventional option there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's something, I mean, he was tried out against Aston Villa, so that might be something that props up. That's well spotted, mate. I mean, let's quickly, man of the match. I think I know who it is. I think you know who it is. For me, well, let's go to you first, actually, Marty. Who's your man of the match?
For me, it's between two. One of them was announced on the Fulham website, which was Michael Hector.
Big Heck, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was Ivan. I thought Ivan was brilliant in the game, Caballero. And that was my other shout out, really. So I feel like they both deserve their kind of shout out. Oh, and Odoi for the celebration.
Yeah, athletic Dennis Odoi, Cirque du Soleil. Stato, who's your man of the match?
Yeah, I think Michael Hector. He had a fantastic game. He's kept us another clean sheet, and I think the club website got that right. Although an honourable mention to Kevin McDonald.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. I completely agree. And last but not least, Parker rating. What's not your numbers for me, Mr. Marty?
I will say a 8 out of 10.
Yeah, nice. And for you, Mr. Statto?
I'll give him a nice solid 9. I think he got a lot right, and he's starting to make me kind of almost love this Fulham team. And what I mean by that is, 2 years ago, we loved that team that went up. We loved every player in that position. And this season, it's been a bit more difficult because there's been a lot of kind of underwhelming performances. And, there's been times when Parker's been unconvincing, but, these last few weeks, we're getting some good results. We're playing well, and we've got a team that are just putting in some likeable performances. And, fair play to Parker for doing that. And, I just hope he can keep this up.
100%. And I think if those goals had gone in the first half, as Marty alluded to, it could have been about 6-0. We would have been talking about this as probably one of the greatest performances of the season. I mean, probably better than Millwall. However, it just, we didn't take them. We haven't got Mitro, and maybe on another day, Bobby Reid would slot them in. So, but for me, I'll go 8.5 because I'm always doing that when I'm between the co-hosts, but I'll say 8.5, and I completely agree. Scott Parker is doing something interesting at the moment. And I think it's a bit of a positive, perfect storm going on. The injuries are cleaning up. There's just a sense that Scott Parker is starting to realize what his best selections are or tactics are. And it's nice to see that without Mitro, we now have this sort of our front three can be more of an elastic band and just sort of have a lot more of a dynamic play. And my God, the speed of our attacking was just on a different level to how it's been the entire season. So kudos to Parker. Well done. 8.5. Well done, lads. All right. After this, we'll have a little preview for the Wednesday night game under the lights at Charlton at the Valley.
Fulham.
And welcome back. So it's Charlton on Wednesday night. I'm actually going to this one. So let's talk about the stats that we've got in front of us, provided by our lovely Statto Arta right here. So what's standing out to you from all this information? I mean, there's quite a huge injury list, wouldn't you say, Marty, for this team?
Yeah, it's horrific. I mean, Statto sent the stat thing on here with all the information about Charlton. And the first thing that literally my eyes just came across, and it saw the injury list, and I thought, Jesus Christ, what happened to this team? They've been decimated with injuries because they were way up there at the beginning of the season. And I definitely think injuries have definitely taken its toll on this team, unfortunately.
There was almost like a thought that they were doing a sort of a Sheffield United at the start of the season, wasn't there? They were just, they got promoted last season, and they were going to just absolutely fly and stay around the top 6 sort of area, wasn't it? It felt like that to me anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And they gave us a hell of a game as well when they played at the Cottage, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was a draw, wasn't it? It was 2-2.
Correct.
Yeah, 2-2. Goals from Cavallero and Mitrovic. And at the time, Charlton were 10th after an impressive start to the season. Statto, these are your stats, man. You're the stat man. Tell me something that you feel like we should be watching out for in this game.
Yeah, so, I just want to talk about Charlton in general. When they got promoted last year, there wasn't actually the expectation for them to get promoted. They've kind of been under really bad ownership for the last few years. And, there was a big negative atmosphere around Charlton. Their attendance was dwindling because people would refuse to go to matches. And it was kind of a bit of a shock that they got promoted, and they did. And at the start of the season, they already had a kind of a wafer-thin, barely championship-level squad. But they got through a fantastic start. Lee Bellier's kind of a really highly rated young manager, regardless if you like him or not, but it's the way it's gone for them. And yeah, they got off to a really good start. They had 5 wins from 10 games. They'd only lost twice before playing us. And then, I think along with the injuries, the kind of promotion buzz kind of died down for them quite quickly, because since playing us, they've only had 2 wins from 16 games. Actually, that's 2 wins from 17 games now, as they lost to Preston on the weekend. Of those 17 games, there's been 10 losses, and only a total of 11 points have been amassed, which it's a really poor, pretty much relegation form. Had they not got off to this great start, they'd be probably in the bottom three right now. So yeah, as mentioned, the decline largely has been down to this massive injury list, and there's also been some funny loan terminations. So one of their best players of the season was Conor Gallagher, young kid coming in from Chelsea, was kind of plays in an attacking midfield role, and it was fantastic. But for some weird reason, this literally happened last week. Chelsea decided to terminate the loan, and the Charlton fans are fuming.
That's right. Yeah,
there were reports of Conor Gallagher. He was in tears. He didn't want to go back. He was enjoying his football. And then the very next day, they loaned him out to Swansea, which I don't know why they do that. It's just maybe because they want to loan him out to a more successful Championship club. It's a weird one. So they've lost him, and then they also lost Beram Kayal. He got a long-term injury, so went back to his parent club of Brighton. So yeah, they're in a bit of a bad place, but they are now under new ownership. I believe it's some kind of Abu Dhabi Middle Eastern consortium, so they could have a lot of money. So it's probably the best time to be playing them now when they've kind of got this injury-depleted squad and not kind of after January when they're expecting to get lots of new recruitments in. So yeah, it's probably better to play them whilst they're down rather than when they're on the way back up.
Can someone tell me what what our record is like at the Valley? For instance, I'm not too sure when we won our last game there. I mean, what our history is like playing there. Can either of you tell me that?
I vaguely remember that we were once, I think it was almost identical to the game at the Cottage where we took the lead and it ended up like a draw. And I think that was sort of in our Premier League time. I think I remember being at I think I went to that game. And it's just, they're just one of these teams that no matter what, they're well up for it when we play them.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of almost Charlton fans perceive us as a rival, I guess, because 15, 20 years ago, we were both in the Premier League. We were both kind of mid-level London-based clubs, shipped down the Thames. So, yeah, there is kind of a small little rivalry there from back in the day. I can tell you that the last time we won at the Valley was...
Go on.
Me here.
Well, come on!
It was a 2-1 win in the Premier League back in 2004.
Jesus Christ! Oh wow. Okay.
Can we get a guess of who scored the goals? Oh no, sorry, that was a Charlton win. Our actual last win at the Valley was in. Oh my god, I'm scrolling a lot here.
You're on thin ice here, mate. These are terrible stats. This is not good statting. This is not good statting.
2003. It was a 1-0 win, and the goal came from.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an easy one to guess. Just guess who our striker would have been back in 2003 in the Premier League.
Marty, guess.
I've got a blank.
It was of course a Mr. Louis Sahar.
Oh wow!
I should have got that. Oh my god! I felt my head in shame. I'm not getting the Messiah.
Well, let's talk about some players we should be watching out for in this game. Jonathan Williams. I mean, am I right in saying he's their main creative outlet, Statto?
Yeah, at the moment he more or less is, because they have injuries to other attacking players. It's kind of all down on him, and he's a very injury-prone player. I don't know if any of you watched the Sunderland Till I Die documentary. He came off.
I did actually. It's brilliant.
Yeah, he came across a really well documentary, and he's just always been injured. He was at Palace, and people loved him at Palace, but it was always injury hit. So he went down to Sunderland. And then he got released by Palace, so Charlton picked him up, and he's been phenomenal for Charlton. But unfortunately, he always picks up a little niggle and a little injury because he's one of those kind of small, tiny, creative players. And I think if you put Jmac on him, that will probably, it'll keep him quiet. I would think.
Yeah, and I've seen the top scorers Macaulay Bonne and Lyle Taylor. I mean, those are players actually that we were linked to for a striking position recently, not too long ago. Weird. Marty, I'll go to you really quickly. I've noticed here from the stats that they've won 36% of their home games. They score an average of 1.43 goals at home. They concede an average of 1.29. Now, here's the thing: 47.6% average possession. Now, I think I saw a stat recently saying that actually we are better. We tend to win more as a team when our possession is lower. So I guess now is a good time to say, what do you think our sort of game plan should be going into this match on Wednesday?
Well, playing less of the slab football, which was possession football, I'm guessing, at this precise moment, if that's true. That's a bizarre stat. I think it's just because we drew very sort of like quickness to go up front, to get the ball up front as quick as possible, from passing it to the back to the front. I would do whatever tactic possible, basically. I just feel like if we can keep creating the chances that we did in the game, like we did against Middlesbrough, just putting the chances away. I'm just hoping that Bobby Reid can get on the end of one of them and get his goal tallies up again.
All right, done. Pause there. Before we move on, Statto, is there any other points about the stats you'd like to mention, or should we go straight on to sort of like what would your starting lineup be, etc.? Is there any sort of like stats you're proud that you want to mention, like goalkeeping or you, Marty, or Lecco, for instance? Or
there is one more fantastic stat which I have just seen. I've just discovered that's not on the stat sheet.
Go on.
And it goes to our last win against Charlton at the Valley, which obviously was back in the 11th of May 2003.
Yeah,
we won, and in midfield for Charlton that day was Scott Parker.
Wow.
So the last we won at the Valley, our manager was playing in midfield for them.
Oh, that's great. That is a great stat. Nice one, mate. Well found. Yeah. Well found. Hopefully, he's not mentally still there. So how would you say, let's talk about Scott then. How would you like to see him line up this team, Statto, on Wednesday night?
I don't think I'd like to see much change from the weekend, to be honest. Defence, more or less the same. Wouldn't mind seeing Odoi go to left back and Christie come back in, or likewise if we keep Brian Odoi, I'm completely fine with that. McDonald, I'd expect to see in midfield, although it'd be a bit of a test to see if he can do 2 games in the space of 4 days. But, hopefully he can. If not, we've got Harry Olsen, we've got Steph Joe. We'll be completely fine. Kearney, I'd like to see play as well. And the front three, I think we're kind of stuck with, because there's not that it's a bad thing, but we don't really have any other options there at the moment. So I don't think too much change.
Nice one. And I mean, I think potentially we might see Terence Congolo in this game when the inevitable happens and we go at 3 at the back at some point trying to protect the lead. What are your thoughts on that, Marty, mate? Any differences that you'd like to see in the starting lineup from what we mentioned?
Yeah, I think I agree with Statto. It's just, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I think we played very, very well against Middlesbrough. I do think the new signing probably will be on the bench. And it's weird because most Huddersfield fans were saying so much talent. It's just a shame it never worked for us. So I'm really intrigued to see how he's going to do when he comes into the team, actually, to be honest here.
Yeah, quite. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm happy to round that up then. I mean, so what... As we do round it up, what's your score prediction, Mr. Statto?
I think that we'll go into this game really wanting to win this. We'll play a strong team because obviously the weekend after we've got an FA Cup game against City where we may not risk as many key players. So, there's going to be a lot of players that are going to be up for it. Charlton, they're depleted, they're weak. I can only see a Fulham win here. I'm going to say, I'm going to go big. I'm going to say 3-0 Fulham.
Nice. I mean, as soon as you said, I think we're going to go in really wanting to win this game, I was going to joke and say, yeah, no shit. But I know what you mean, because the results around us at the moment, it is impossible to ignore. I mean, you look at, we're 6 points away. No, 5. I think it's 5 points away from overtaking Leeds in second place. And I believe it's West Brom v Stoke tonight. So if you're listening to this tomorrow morning, you will have known what the result is. I don't think any of us are thinking that West Brom are going to lose that game, but it is getting tighter, isn't it, Marty? What are your thoughts? Do you feel like automatics could be in our destiny again?
Well, at one point it looked like it was a disaster, didn't it? And it was just like, Parker, what's going on? We haven't got the right players. And all of a sudden, 3 wins on the spin, from us, looking better in the back, creating more chances. Obviously, Dimitrovic was a bit of an incident that we could have done without. And, well, you can always rely on Leeds to falling apart. So that always helps that we're so many points off from them. So pressure's on them, really.
Exactly. Statto, any thoughts you want to say about automatic hopes, or you think you're keeping your cards close to your chest?
I think it's definitely we're in a much better position than we were a month ago. I think a month ago I was kind of resigned to, it's playoffs are best now. But, that's the thing with the Championship. And it's just an unpredictable league. And, in a month's time, we could be in first, we could be in second, we could be in eighth or something, who knows? But I think, the pieces are kind of slowly falling into place now in a good way for us. And, we're now into the second half, and if we can keep this up and, we got lots of kind of advantages coming our way now. We're going to have Mitrovic coming back from injury, which will be a humongous boost. We're going to have all these other players coming back. We may get one or two more signings coming in, and that could kind of be the boost that we'll need to kind of get us over the line and to kind of get through the season, hopefully in an automatic spot.
All right, and Marty, never asked you, mate. What is your score prediction for Wednesday night? Go.
Hello, Jmac. I think we should possibly go for a 2-0 win. I would like to go 3 or 4-0, but I feel like I'm turning into an arrogant Leeds fan. So I'm just going to say 2-0, another clean sheet, and we get the job done at the Valley.
I'm going to say 2-1. 2-1, and I think we're going to get the 3 points for the first time since 2003. My God. But you know what? I mean, you talk about how close it's getting. Nottingham Forest slowly on the rise, potentially, just like Meghan Markle's acting career. But let's go and have a drink, lads. Very nice. Thank you very much to my co-host. Thank you very much to you guys listening. If you guys like what you hear, please tell your friends about us. We are on Spotify. We're on iTunes. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We have a website where it's all of our interviews done by Danny Boy himself. And we'll be back. We'll be doing a Charlton reaction as soon as possible, preferably coming out on Thursday morning. See you there. Fulham focus update goes to show you what I know. Stoke have done it. It is 1-0 to Stoke, which puts West Brom at 53 points, Leeds on 52, and Fulham on 48. The title race is back on, in my opinion. Charlton now is huge. See you then.
Fulham.